Man, we're pretty far up here in northern Vermont, Jeff.
Yep, that we are. We are east of St. Albans, Vermont, and just about 12 miles south of the Canadian border.
Vermont's Northeast Kingdom is a mysterious place. Remote, too.
Yeah, that it is, and it would be very easy to hide up here.
Well, the way you said that makes me think that we're looking for something hidden?
We are. Something hidden and mysterious.
Oh, got it. All right, I can see up ahead that this paved road turns into a dirt road in a minute. What are we looking for? Are we going to go off-roading soon?
No. We're not going off-roading, but our first stop is right up here on the right. We've come to East Fairfield, Vermont, to look for a president of the United States. Hello, I'm Jeff Belanger.
And I'm Ray Auger. Welcome to episode 358 of the New England Legends podcast. Thanks for joining us in our mission to chronicle every legend in New England one story at a time. We're always on the hunt for historic oddities and curiosities, ghosts, monsters, UFOs, and anything else weird. Most of our story leads come from you, so please reach out to us anytime through our website.
We'll go searching for this president of the United States right after this word from our sponsor.
So we're up here in East Fairfield, Vermont, looking for a president?
We are. And it's an election year, and I know there's few things quite as triggering in this country as talking about presidential politics. But we have good news for everyone. We don't talk about living presidents. We don't tell you who to vote for. But we do love history. The weirder, the better. So let's pull over right up here by that little yellow house.
Okay.
Ray, we're looking for the birthplace of President Chester A. Arthur.
All right, well, I admit it, the name does sound familiar, but I don't know a lot about him.
Totally fair. He's not one of those standout names in presidential history, but he was president. Go ahead and start looking him up on your phone.
Already on it. Okay, Chester A. Arthur was the 21st president of the United States. Oh, check this out. He was the vice president to James Garfield. Garfield took office March 4th, 1881. It was assassinated 6 months later on September 19th. So Chester Arthur became president after the assassination.
Right.
This is interesting, too. Arthur was a vain guy. He dressed well, preferred to be known as General Arthur, referring to his title during the Civil War. He never saw combat, but liked the title.
Got it.
He tried to lower taxes. He felt it was an embarrassment when the government had a surplus. He also only served one term. He was not nominated to run again.
So that means his own political party didn't think much of him.
Right. Well, Chester Arthur died in 1886. And look at that. It says he was born October 5th, 1829 in Fairfield, Vermont.
Right. Now, there's some question there on the year and the location. It's a mystery that brings us right here to this yellow house.
All right, so the yellow house in front of us is really small. I mean, it looks like a really large backyard shed.
Sure, yeah.
It's got white shutters and looks new, or at least well-maintained.
Right, so the house isn't original. It's a reproduction. Check out the stone monument, though, right next to the house.
Okay, well, it's a square monument to the right of the house. The front reads, "On this spot stood the cottage where was born Chester A. Arthur, the 21st president of the United States, erected by the state of Vermont."
Grammatically a little awkward,
Yes.
But that's how they wrote it. The stone was placed here in 1903. The yellow cottage was built in 1953 and was supposed to be a replica of the small home where the Arthur family once lived when the president was born.
Well, there you go. Mystery solved. Doesn't seem like there's much of a mystery at all. I guess he was born right here, Jeff.
Okay, so that's the thing.
What?
Chester Arthur wasn't born here, and that's not what his first house looked like.
Really? Well, how did the state of Vermont get that wrong?
In Vermont's defense, they weren't far off, and there's been some controversy about Chester Arthur's date and place of birth since at least 1880.
1880 was the year before he became president. What was in debate back then?
So one part of the problem is Chester Arthur himself. He was known to tell people he was born in 1830, making himself a year younger than he actually was.
So lying about his age.
Right, by 1 year. And by the way, Arthur was committed to this lie about his age. Today, he's buried in Albany Rural Cemetery in New York State. He's got a fancy grave and monument with a plaque that says his date of birth was October 5th, 1830.
Even his grave says 1830?
It does. It seems silly to me to lie about your age for 1 year. I mean, it doesn't get you much, but that's how he was. Now, we won't split hairs over the year of birth thing, but the place of birth, that one has caused much more of a dust-up.
All right, how so?
So first, back in 1880, when it was announced that Chester Arthur was going to be on the James Garfield presidential ticket as the VP, their political rivals tried to dig up all the dirt they could, as one does. One conspiracy theory that was floated was that Chester Arthur was actually born about 20 miles north from this spot.
Okay. Well, I think I see where this is going.
Do you?
Well, 20 miles north would put us in Canada, wouldn't it?
Durham, Quebec, absolutely. And that's what they specifically stated back in 1880.
Which would make Chester Arthur not a U.S.-born citizen.
Nope. He would have been a British royal subject if he were born in Canada back then.
And if Chester Arthur was born in Canada, he wouldn't be eligible to be president of the United States, and by default, he couldn't be vice president either.
Correct. That would be Article 2, Section 1 of the United States Constitution.
So they had presidential birther conspiracies back in 1880 as well?
Looks like they did. Now, pretty quickly, some newspaper reports circulated shutting down all the claims that Arthur was born in Canada, which satisfied most people, but not all. Some folks would rather hold on to the lie. What can you do?
Got it.
So as we mentioned, back in 1903, this stone was placed here because the Historical Society said this was the land where Chester Arthur was born. They even had an historic photo of his old house that was long gone by that point. So the stone was placed. 50 years later, it was decided they should build a replica of the house in the photo. Now, when we dug through the newspaper archives, the plot thickened.
I'm reading from the June 4th, 1953 White River Valley Herald. The headline reads, quote, Fairfield voted official President Arthur birthplace.
Now, that doesn't seem like something that should be up for a vote, does it?
No, it doesn't. I know where I was born. No matter how many people may vote on a different town, it doesn't change the facts.
Exactly. Okay, read on.
All right, further down the article, it says, quote, the resolution pointed out that $15,000 has been appropriated to develop a Chester A. Arthur birthplace at Fairfield, and that there is documentary proof that on October 5th, 1830...
And that's the wrong year again, but go on.
On October 5th, 1830, Arthur was born in Waterville, Lamoille County.
Now, Waterville is just about 6 miles southeast of us.
The article concluded that the matter had been investigated by the Historical Society, and they voted 104 to 71 to go ahead with the Fairfield location.
So in 1953, they built this yellow house based on the old photograph and opened the location to tourists. Years later, after further digging, they learned this was not Chester Arthur's original home. It was his second home. He moved here when he was very young.
Well, wait, I think I'm seeing it now. If people believe Chester Arthur, that he was born in 1830, this is where he was living in 1830.
That's it. That's the idea.
Which means a year earlier, he was somewhere else.
Right.
But not Canada.
No. No one but a few political opponents ever claimed he was born in Canada.
All right, got it. I could see a state of Vermont historical marker over by the road. Let's go check that thing out.
Okay.
This marker says, Chester A. Arthur, 21st President of the United States. Research indicates Chester Allen Arthur was born in Fairfield, Vermont on October 5th, 1829. When he was less than a year old, his parents moved him to a new parsonage built at this site. And then it goes on to list all of his accomplishments.
Right. So the historical marker by the road corrects the history.
Which begs the question, where was Chester Arthur born?
Okay, let's head down to Fairfield's town hall. We're going to head about 5 miles into Fairfield, heading down Chester A. Arthur Road.
Good name for a road.
Yeah, I agree. Okay, so we'll park in the town hall parking lot.
All right, got it. Well, this is a small town. From this intersection, we can see the town hall, the library, a couple stores, and a farm.
So we're going to walk across the street to see another state of Vermont historic sign. Okay, give this one a read.
This one looks a lot like the one in front of the Arthur House site. But this one says, quote, Chester A. Arthur, birthplace of 21st President. Although the exact location is debated, Chester A. Arthur was born on October 5th, 1829 in Fairfield. Then it goes on to say how he became a New York lawyer, the VP for James Garfield, and that he became president.
So the Arthurs did live in nearby Waterville, Vermont for a short time, but then moved to Fairfield in May of 1828. Because Chester Arthur's father was a preacher, they moved around a lot wherever he could get a job, which may explain why the exact address where the family was living on October 5th, 1829 is unknown. We suspect the Arthurs were living in a temporary cabin in Fairfield while their permanent residence was being constructed, 5 miles up the road from here. Where that original cabin was located within Fairfield has been lost to time.
Add in the birther conspiracy theory and a guy who lied about his age, and I can see how there's a little bit of confusion here.
Which gets to the point of the matter. Does it matter all that much where we're born? Now, I get we all start somewhere, and that starting place will help shape and define us. There's no way around that. But in the end, maybe it's not where you're from, but where you're at. I think it's always where you're at. And where we're at is After the Legend, where we take a deeper dive into this week's story and sometimes veer off course.
After the Legend is brought to you by our Patreon patrons. We thank them each and every week because, well, we need our patrons.
We do.
They help us with all of our hosting, production, marketing, traveling, and all other costs it takes to bring you 2 episodes each week. They get early ad-free access to our entire archive of episodes. They get bonus episodes and content that no one else gets to hear. They get discounts on our events and products, and they get our unending gratitude. It's just $3 per month. Please join us at patreon.com/New England Legends.
And to see some pictures of the historic Chester A. Arthur site and the signs, click on the link in our episode description or go to our website and click on episode 358. And I do want to point out, a lot of the information for this week's story comes from the autumn 1970 Vermont Historic Journal from the Vermont Historical Society. And they were the ones who concluded that Chester Arthur was probably born in some log cabin that was like a temporary lodging while they built the home for the parson.
It's funny that you mentioned in the episode that it doesn't really matter where you're born, it's where you are.
Of course.
And for some reason, I'm always looking up hometowns of celebrities
Yeah.
or where they were born.
Of course, yeah.
Especially promoting something. Like the Pub Kings will be in a town. I'll say, oh, that's the hometown of so-and-so.
Yeah, sure.
But they were only there for about 6 months. They were born there. Then they were raised somewhere else, went to high school. So that birthing town really doesn't matter.
Unless you're running for president.
Well, yes, in this case.
So funny thing, I was reading about that clause in the Constitution. You have to be a natural-born U.S. citizen. You can be born foreign if you're born on a military base. That counts. So if your parents are serving in the military, one or both of your parents, and you're born there, you absolutely are still eligible to be president. But not if you were a natural-born foreign citizen.
Sure.
Think about this. George Washington, when he was born, was British.
Oh, yeah. You're right. Doesn't apply to the first guy.
First several, right? Because they were...
Oh, yeah. They were all British.
Yeah. They weren't American until 1776.
Right.
Right?
Yeah.
They were all much older than that. So so the first several presidents... but Washington was born on U.S. soil, and so that was sort of like the workaround. And I guess they figured, like, well, after enough time, this will just work itself out.
Sure, yeah.
We'll all get old and die, and you have to be 35.
Yeah.
And so, but for the math, right? So 35 years before 1776, everybody was British born.
Yeah. That's interesting. Never thought of that.
Yeah, yeah. And some of those founding fathers were born in England, like literally in England, and came over here. So, yeah, some of those folks were in violation of the Constitution. George Washington, for one.
I wonder if he used that
if he's just
as his defense.
Hey,
wait a minute. I wasn't the only one.
I don't think I can be president because I wasn't born. I mean, we're going to need to elect an infant, like a 3-year-old, right? So, but anyway, I thought that was kind of funny. No time travel this week either.
Yeah, I usually after these episodes, there's a little bit of jet lag involved. I feel very good now. So
I couldn't figure out a way to do it. Didn't seem necessary. So
you didn't want to meet the guy?
Well, I mean, that wasn't the story. The story was where it started, and we
could have went back and just shook his hand or something.
And like,
and
hey,
came back.
Chester Arthur. Also, I learned a lot about him. He was quite ill by the end of his first term, and but hid it from everybody and didn't want folks to know that he was sick. And had he been reelected, he would not have lived because we mentioned the year of his death. He would not have lived 4 more years. So
crazy.
Yeah. But lying about your age by 1 year, if you're 20 and you say you're 21, okay, I get it.
Sure. Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like you got a motivation there.
But at that age?
But at 37, you're like, I'm 36.
Well, I mean, I know a lot of women that do that.
By 1 year?
Well, no, it's usually 39.
You'd fudge
39, 40, when they turn 40, say, I'm still 39.
You hold it
for
to
7
nines.
years.
You hold it to nines for years, right?
Yeah.
Like, sure. I mean, out of vanity. You're like, no, I'm 39. I'm not 44.
Yeah. I mean, that's a weird lie. 1 year. at that age. You're hiding something, obviously, I think.
Well, and holding that line,
Right.
So apparently it was close to 1880 that he started saying, I was born in 1830, to the point where it's on his headstone, right? And finally, when people looked him up, they said, he was just so vain. Oh, call me general. You never saw battle,
Right, yeah.
and wore like really fancy clothes and was very much like about appearances and things like that. That was his thing. And lying about his age by 1 year. Who knew? But yeah, no, I love that. We do want to know where people got their start, and we, I
was born in Southbridge, Massachusetts. I have no ties to Southbridge.
Were you really?
That's where I was born. That's the hospital I was born in.
I was born in Southbridge.
Really?
Harrington?
Yeah. I never knew that.
I never knew you were
That
born
was
at Harrington.
my hospital.
We're
Yeah.
finding this out right now.
But you were in Connecticut?
No.
Your family? Where was your family?
I was in Southbridge for the first 2 years of my life.
Oh, you were actually in that town.
Yeah, we lived there.
I was in East Brookfield, so
that was the closest big hospital. So yeah, I was born in Southbridge. I lived there for 2 years. And then my family moved to West Virginia for just 1 year for a job, for my dad's job, and then moved around then to Connecticut.
Yeah.
And then
But Connecticut is your hometown.
that's where I grew. I mostly went to school, graduated high school. Where you graduate high school really feels like your hometown.
I think so. Yeah.
You know what I mean? And so that's where I graduated
so much
high school.
so that I went to a regional high school in Spencer, Massachusetts.
Yeah.
So sometimes I will say I'm from Spencer.
Sure.
Because that's where I went to high school, even though East Brookfield is my hometown.
If you want to know how small of a town Southbridge is, if you go to their Wikipedia page and look up notable people from there, I'm listed.
Are you really?
I really am.
That's great.
I had nothing to do with that, but there it is. There's like some, state rep who was from there years ago. And there's
maybe some football player from the 40s.
Yeah, third stringer on some team, and then there's me. And I was like, look, right, third string kicker. And there's me. I'm like, wow, this is a small town.
That's cool. Do you show that to everybody? You must.
Just people from Southbridge.
Is it a link on your page?
No, it's on the
Should be.
Wikipedia Southbridge page. I just lorded over people from Southbridge. So yeah, Harrington Memorial. Isn't that funny? I was born in the same hospital.
Yeah, obviously not the same year.
By the way, also worth noting, Tony Dunn, who works on the New England Legends television series with me, born in Harrington Memorial Hospital. It's three of us.
Is it still? It's still there, isn't it?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, I think it's been taken over by some other corporation, but it's still, a hospital.
Interesting.
Yeah. So that's where we got our start. Not lying about ages or anything like that, but if anyone ever wanted to look it up, maybe one day there'll be a plaque, right? New England Legends podcast
slow down.
was sort of born here in front of Harrington Memorial Hospital. Like New England Legends, like Tony, Ray, Jeff.
Oh, yeah. Well, that would make sense.
Yeah.
So now my goal is to get on the Wikipedia page.
Get on it.
I mean, anybody can edit the Wikipedia page, right?
I can make you the president of the United States if you want. We'll get on it.
Please get more involved with us. We love sharing time with you each and every week. So hit subscribe wherever you get your podcast because it's free and we don't want you to miss a thing. We also deeply appreciate the reviews that you post for us and when you tell others about the podcast. Share your favorite episodes on your social media or tell others. Please also join us in our New England Legends Facebook group and download our free New England Legends app.
We'd like to thank our Patreon patrons. Thank you to our sponsors, and our theme music is by John Judd.
Until next time, remember,
The Bazaar is closer than you think.